It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home as the presidency has issued a strong rebuke of former President Olusegun Obasanjo following his recent comments at the Chinua Achebe Leadership Forum at Yale University. In a statement by Special Advisor Bayo Onanuga, the presidency criticized Obasanjo for blaming current leaders for Nigeria's challenges, asserting that a man with his record should not lecture others on leadership. Onanuga highlighted that during Obasanjo's tenure, significant governance failures occurred, including allegations of corruption, constitutional breaches, and a lack of investment in infrastructure and security. He pointed out that many of the issues Obasanjo addressed remain unresolved, raising questions about his credibility as a critic. According to the presidency, it is ironic that Obasanjo is calling for reforms in the Independent National Electoral Commission, given his own controversial electoral practices. The presidency urged him to reflect on his leadership legacy instead of continuing to issue critiques, emphasizing the need for constructive dialogue to foster national progress. So this is, of course, a direct response to that's the keynote address that was delivered by the former president at Yale University. So we discussed the address yesterday. I guess today is about the response.
I think the rebuttal, I'd even seen bits of the rebuttal yesterday. It was not only Bayo Onanuga that gave a rebuttal. He also had the likes of Sunday Diary wrote a quick rebuttal. So as regards the rebuttal given, yes, I'm not saying Obasanjo is a saint, please don't get me wrong, and I'm going to get a chance to unpack a lot of things this morning. But some of the rebuttals were questionable. Number one was the case of the 16 billion spent on electricity Sunday Diary claimed. They should go and bring out the facts. I'm not sure up to 16 billion was spent on electricity, because their own serving minister, Adebayo, for power, did say that about 8 billion, over 8 billion was spent, and that they can see the works of the things Obasanjo did with those projects, the NIP project. So if their own minister was saying over 8 billion, doesn't want to go into the rigmarole of 16 billion, they should give us the empirical. Because I've also checked the EFCC report, I've checked Obasanjo's rebuttal and everything, not solid in fact. All the other things they said, yes, it rings true. But they also share in the blame. The last elections were below standard. INEC changed the goalposts. Just like Obasanjo's 2003 elections were flawed, even the presidents then that benefited from the 2007 elections said the elections that probably were fraught with irregularities. So Obasanjo cannot say it's a standard as regards that. But as regards economic growth, they know they can't talk. Even Bayo Onanuga acknowledged it, that the only positive was monetary and fiscal policies were well maintained during Obasanjo. The question we should ask them is, where is the monetary and fiscal policies? Only recently, IMF is not telling them that their policies are not working. People are having policy fatigue. They should go and communicate to the people effectively. So even they acknowledge that as regards economic growth to Organa Master, Obasanjo is their Oga. Organa Master, you can't change it. Also, as regards the other things, yes, upturning elections here and there, yes, there was that too. But let us also forget that that was when they too also picked up some states. We can't deny that fact. We cannot deny what Obasanjo had. He bullied his way to take over the southwestern states, which we all thought, was against the grain of democracy. We can't deny that fact. But as regards also their conduct in government today, it leaves much to be desired. So some things that Bayo Onanuga said, yes, I accept it, but also many things they said, I also disagree with it.
Okay, what is the editorial subject before us? The editorial subject before us is that President Obasanjo speaking at the Chinua Achebe Leadership Forum lecture at Yale University criticized the Tinubu administration, saying that Nigeria has been thrown under the bus by Baba Go-Slow and a Milokon phenomenon under President Tinubu, and that this has resulted in state capture, which he described as the worst form of corruption that can ever be thought of. And he used that opportunity also to complain about corruption in Nigeria and also about the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, President Obasanjo, I assume, was speaking in that context as a spokesman. Now, the presidency of President Tinubu has responded to say that he lacks the moral high ground to grandstand or to moralize or to sermonize about good governance, leadership, because he was quoting Chinua Achebe's 1983 book, The Trouble with Nigeria. And Mr. Bayo Ononuga, said that there were many instances in which Obasanjo himself, either in 2007 or before then or thereafter, violated the same principles that he was preaching about. That is the editorial issue. Now to my comment. My comment is, number two, it's not everything that the opposition responds to or that a statesman responds to that you have to reply to, respond to. And I speak as an ancestor in that office. There are occasions when, as part of strategy, you just choose to ignore so that, you don't escalate the issue. Now, what Mr. Ononuga has done is to raise Obasanjo's statements to a higher level for public interrogation. And that is why we are here to this morning talking about it. If it was ignored, it will not be an issue. He talked at Achebe's platform. Achebe was not his friend. Fine. He says corruption is in Nigeria. We all know that there is corruption. He said that INEC needs institutional reform. I don't think that many of us would argue with that. So why do you use so much energy? And then Mr. Ononuga, Sunday Dare, both boss and staff, coming together to attack one man. It will not be possible for President Tinubu to say that people will not express opinions, no matter the strength of the Iron Dome syndrome that President Tinubu has created with public communication. I use the expression Iron Dome syndrome in my column today at the back page of this day newspaper, because it's an Iron Dome syndrome. You know Iron Dome, the Iron Dome that the Israelis have. Anything coming from Iran, they throw it away. Anything coming from Lebanon, they throw it. Anything coming from anywhere, they say they are ready. Okay, you don't run government by having an Iron Dome governance public communication strategy, because the people, we always ask questions. We have 13 people working for President Tinubu just to talk to the public. We also have a minister of information. So we have a total army of 14.
No, 12. Feladroto said he has left. He said he's no longer with them.
Oh, no, he hasn't made that public.
No, he said it. It's in the papers. He wrote an article.
Oh, he says he has left?
He said he has left since March 2024.
He has left. Daniel Boala says he's here. Emilokan. We are here to defend the Tinubu administration. But what I'm just saying is that the engagement with the public should be more strategic. I would like to see how the Tinubu Obasanjo tango plays out. Because if you think you can tire out a man like former President Olusegun Obasanjo, you may just be starting a war. Do they want to take on former presidents just for expressing an opinion? People can express opinion. We are here every day. We express opinions. No, the Iron Dome should be better managed. Already Boala is saying he's a spokesman. Mr. Ononuga is saying there's no single spokesman. Well, I don't know. That's another subject. I think maybe Ojinika will bring the subject. And we can advise Daniel Boala appropriately not to put his head into hot water.
All right. So the headline, Obasanjo, not ideal leader to emulate, was quite tragic, in that this is an elder statesman of the nation, and whether you love him or you hate him, he has contributed good to this nation. So they say that don't throw away a man for his weaknesses, because in doing so, you also throw him away for his strengths. Now let's talk about former President Olusegun Obasanjo as a statesman. That's what I want to focus on today, because for his shortcomings and for those mistakes that he may have made here in Nigeria, he's very much celebrated across the continent. Now, it's often said that his legacy is extremely divisive, but one thing we can't take away from the retired general, is the fact that he stands for black liberation and for the emancipation of the black race. I say this because of his role that he played in Southern Africa with regards to the liberation movement. He stood with Angola, he stood with Zambia, he stood with Mozambique, he stood with Zimbabwe, he stood with Tanzania, both during his military tenure and during democracy. He stood with South Africa, and he was an instrumental part of ensuring that during his time, apartheid was dismantled. I believe a UN conference against apartheid was hosted here in Lagos in 1977. And he made sure he was consistent with it. When he came back as a democratic leader, he reinstated a relationship with Nelson Mandela. In the 70s as well, Nigeria pledged $2 million, which they did pay out, to the liberation movements in Zimbabwe at the time, which was Rhodesia. So I bring all these points up to say that, yes, the man may have made mistakes in his leadership in various areas. However, to now go as far as saying that he is not a good leader or he's not a leader to be emulated is a very, very deep and unnecessary statement, especially in the spirit of us moving forward. All conversation is welcome. That's why it's a democracy. Every single voice of dissent should be considered because, again, where a statement may have its lapses, it also has its strengths. You don't throw away the baby with the bathwater. Now, in recent times, you look at the contribution that this man has made. He brokered the peace deal, the Pretoria Agreement in 2022, that ended the war between Ethiopia and the Tigrayan forces. He ensured that the current president of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, was freed when at the time he was an opposition leader and he was persecuted by sitting president Edgar Lungu. He traveled to Zambia himself, visited the opposition leader in the prison, and made sure he negotiated a release for him. Similar in Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe, when he engaged with Nelson Chamisa Tendai Biti and Morgan Tsvangirai to ensure that the opposition leaders could have a peaceful space to demonstrate their activism under the hard rule of Robert Mugabe at that time. So all of these qualities mean that he has witnessed African democracies in so many countries that even if he had not been the president of Nigeria, he still has enough experience and acumen as a leader to be able to chime his voice into what he is observing and witnessing, and it should be taken at its merit, and those parts that don't seem to apply can be discarded. There's no need to insult the man and to completely reject everything that he is bringing to the table.